This is Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur with your host, Lynn Freest. Lynn will share ideas and expert advice from people that are walking in your shoes and living their encore careers, where they want and at the pace they want. You'll start a company of one with confidence and knowledge to live a fulfilled life of freedom and ease. Lynn is a coach and leadership consultant whose mission is to show senior leaders and experts how to start something refreshing and new after a full career in the corporate environment.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the podcast, Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur. In this episode, we'll be talking about building momentum with mindfulness and emotional intelligence with Tony Saccardi. My goal in this podcast is to help you create a compelling future for yourself in an encore career, or, as I like to say, become a silver entrepreneur. I will also share ideas on how companies can connect with talent that you can provide for them and thereby create value for both you and the organization. I always encourage you to visit my website and download the summary at the bottom of the podcast episode and use that as a tool to capture notes as you explore the concepts in this episode. And if you're considering or starting an encore career, please take the self-assessment quiz to help you create some quick clarity around your possible choices. Well, today we're going to be talking with a good friend, Tony Saccardi. Tony worked in Fintech for 25 years as a consultant and technical director. He loved what he was doing, but he fell into a trap of chronic stress. So he now developed himself using these tools of mindfulness and emotional intelligence, and he now uses those tools and techniques to show you how to chip away at unhelpful habits and peel off layer by layer the limiting beliefs, keeping you from being your authentic self. His goal is to help people find freedom from what's holding them back and to develop their inner coach. And the outcome he wants to help you achieve is to set you free, so you will live a happy life with no regrets. So some of the questions we're going to talk about today is his journey from an expert in Fintech to coaching, how he developed his practice of mindfulness, how he now helps leaders take mindfulness into action so it can be an everyday practice for them. And then finally, we wrap up with some steps to consider in creating your own encore career from his experience. Tony, welcome today, and I appreciate you joining in with us. And we'll just start off, as I always do, I'd like you to introduce yourself, tell a little about your journey and the work that you're up to.
All right, Lynn, thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Tony Saccardi. And talking about my journey, let me start a few years ago. I used to be in IT. I was an IT guy, and I was in IT for about 25 years as a software architect, technical director, managing director, working for Fintech, large financial companies in their IT department. And I was loving my job. I was in the flow most of the time, like really enjoying what I was doing, until I got to a point where I felt like I had more at stake, like career-wise and so on, and started to play the corporate game of trying to climb the ladder. And that's when I started to do stupid things like not getting enough sleep, working long hours just to show up that I was showing up. The kind of things that set you back a bit. And I remember my time as a consultant where I was really working like maybe 5 or 6 hours a day, to be honest. But my work was excellent. It was really good. And when it was needed, I would stay there sometimes for 24 hours in a row, like just to get the thing done. But when I switched to trying to build a career, then it was long hours every day and trying to do too many things, multitasking, doing everything that's wrong, basically. And that little by little got me into a state of chronic stress. And the definition of chronic stress is that you start doing all the things that are bad for you and not doing all the things that are good for you. So you stop exercising, you stop sleeping, and you start eating junk food, having too many drinks, all the things that are not very good. And it gets worse and worse. And then you start waking up in the morning at 2 o'clock with anxiety crisis and so on. So I got to that point. And when I got to that point, things in my career also started to fall down a bit. Like there were questions about my work, the quality of my work, and so on. So it was very disappointing to me because I was used to be excellent, to be the best at what I was doing. And then suddenly I was not a performer anymore. I was not that good. And I felt like, okay, I'm not doing really well. I need to figure this out. And at that time, I met mindfulness. It was just like a coincidence. I was asked to help the volunteer group for the wellness center at work. And I came to the first meeting and they told me, we haven't done any meditation in a while. Would you like to try that? And I said, I don't know what meditation is, but I'm going to try. And around the same time, it was very funny because my wife was involved helping Buddhist monks in Thailand with archaeology. Her dad is an archaeologist from Afghanistan. And at the time, that was the time they destroyed the Bamiyan Buddha and all that stuff. And he was involved in helping. And he was contacted by the Dhammakaya in Thailand, and a very strong influence. And they were interested in digging more about, finding out about the Buddha. So long story short, one day I came back to my house from work and I opened the door and I find Buddhist monks from Thailand in my living room about to give like a meditation practice to a bunch of people that my wife had invited. So I could not run away. I had to stay there and meditate with them. And I found out it's not as bad as I thought it was and actually useful. I felt relaxed and everything else. So I started to dig a little more into meditation and mindfulness. And I did that. And the way I am is like, when I take something, I like to go deep. I like to dig and find out more about it. So I went to study meditation, mindfulness in Sedona with Sarah Macklin and got my certification as a meditation teacher at the same time that I was developing that at the workplace, creating a program where twice a week we would meet and listen to meditations. And then I started to create another program, a mindfulness program, once a week where we will learn like all the different types of meditation techniques and try to create a practice that is practiced every day and bring mindfulness to the workplace. And as I was doing that, I realized I liked my old job less and less, and what I was doing with meditation, mindfulness more and more, and spending more and more time doing that and less time doing the other things that I was supposed to do. And at the same time that this happened, there was a geostrategy happening at the place of work where they wanted people to move to a different place because San Francisco was too expensive. And at the time, Austin in Texas was less expensive, or Denver in Colorado. So I was asking if I wanted to move there, and I said no. And instead, I took the little parachute that they gave me, a few months free. And with that, I thought, okay, that's going to be enough time for me to switch around and become a mindfulness teacher and use that for a living. So I decided to do that. So left my job, got 6-7 months worth of salary, so to get me started, and got started on that. But as soon as I tried that, someone told me, hey, you should learn about coaching, that right your alley, that's what you should be doing. I got involved with CTI and then started learning about coaching, took their program, their certification. And as I was doing that, received an email coming from Goldman EI, Dan Goldman himself, the story. And I thought, oh my God, I cannot miss that. So I wanted to do that too, learn emotional intelligence from the guru of emotional intelligence. So I started to do that program as well. So I had 2 programs going on, the CTI, the Goldman EI, at the same time that I was starting my business in mindfulness. And little by little, I realized that, coaching is really what I like doing the most. And emotional intelligence is really mindfulness in action. That's what it is. So if you take the practice of mindfulness, the practice is like going to the gym, like doing your meditation and so on. So you build the muscles inside. But at the end of the day, using those muscles is what emotional intelligence is. So all that fit me just like a glove. I felt this is heaven. I'm exactly in the right place, doing the right thing. And then once I got my certification in emotional intelligence, started coaching, using my skills from CTI, helping people with mindfulness through Wellness Coach, and starting giving presentations on emotional intelligence and so on. And that's pretty much my business today. I offer 3 things. I offer emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and workshops, going into that material, flexible, like doing all kinds of things. I have a background in acting, so I'm using that too. I know improv, I know acting. And acting was very interesting because that was the first time I was really taught about emotions and not judging people. When you are an actor and you have to play a character, you cannot judge them. You have to understand their circumstances and why they would act like that, and figure out under what circumstances you would act the same way, no matter how bad the character is. And when you do that, you have to let go of judgment. You have to learn about finding circumstances that would make you act one way or the other. And you realize, yeah, given the right circumstances, anybody would just do about anything. And that changes your picture of the world. So that's also in the back of my mind when I teach emotional intelligence. It's like going to that place where you realize, yeah, judging is not necessary, blaming is not necessary. We need to rise above that and create a better world.
So that's an amazing story, and you've got a great richness of a variety of things that you've added together to create what you're working on now. But I can imagine in the corporate world, there's some pushback as far as this whole idea of mindfulness, emotional intelligence. What have you run into there that you found or been able to overcome?
Yeah, it's really amazing. There's what you read in the news and social media. So if you're really aware of emotional intelligence like we are, we'll pick up on some of the articles on social media, the posts and so on, stating that emotional intelligence is kind of old and we need to replace that with something else and blah, blah, blah. But what I see in the corporate world is that most people are aware that there is something called emotional intelligence. But when you ask them a couple of questions about it, you realize they know absolutely nothing about it. And that's the reality. Most people don't know what emotional intelligence is. And so when you start explaining to them like what it is, leadership skills that can help them doing what they're doing at work, being a better manager and so on, then it changes the picture. They suddenly realize, oh, wow, yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah, I remember, again, from our training, some of the competencies for emotional intelligence are achievement and leadership and having difficult conversations. And all of a sudden, okay, yeah, those do apply to my work in corporate.
Yeah. And it's a nice segue from mindfulness because to me, the two are associated. That there is no, mindfulness, again, is going to the gym, building those muscles. That's what it is. As soon as you do that, you realize you will behave differently with yourself, with other people. One of the best compliments I received from doing my mindfulness program was people telling me that the people around them, the people they work with, their peers, their boss, their family, told them, oh, wow, something has changed with you. You're different. You listen now. Oh, nice compliments like this. And it changes you from the inside. And then emotional intelligence, again, that's the tools. That's how you can activate what you've learned with mindfulness, your new powers, how you can activate them at work.
Yeah, and sometimes we think of mindfulness as an inner journey or working on ourselves, but that whole idea of it changes how you show up for people. So as you said, it changes your relationship with others and how they see you and really your effectiveness as a leader or as a parent or as a spouse or anything like that.
Yeah, as I was looking at mindfulness, I look a little bit of the history of meditation, yoga, which yoga is meditation in India. It's only here that yoga is doing things with your body and so on. But really, the old yoga is meditation first. Looking at the history of all that, it was very interesting and realized that there were many branches that were about renunciation to the world, like giving up on the world and becoming a monk and doing meditation and nothing else. So there's that part and it exists and it's real. But in today's world, it cannot work, of course. We don't want to learn meditation so we can become a monk and retire and not see anybody anymore. But there was also some different branches, different currents called yoga of action, so meditation in action, that were meant for people who live in the real world. The origin of tantric yoga was just that, being able to use meditation and yoga techniques in the real world. It changed, now it's becoming a sex thing, of course, but at the origin, it was about meditation and yoga for the people who want to live in the real world. And I think that's where we are right now. Looking at mindfulness, meditation, we want to let go of the part that's about renunciation and becoming a monk and take the part that can help us live in the real world. And that's where emotional intelligence fits perfectly. It's taking what we've learned from meditation, mindfulness, and putting it into action.
And I think, too, sometimes I've heard people say, well, I don't have time for mindfulness or these activities. And yet you get so much recovery or rest, or you can bring so much more energy into the world by spending that time in mindfulness activities, at least in my experience.
Totally. And the other thing is that you do the exercise of meditation, you close your eyes, you're in a room where you're not going to be disturbed and so on. That's because you need to learn the basics. And you cannot do that outside. It's going to be too noisy and too hard, too many distractions. So you have to learn in a quiet place. But once you've learned how to listen to your breathing, to be in your body, to listen to your thoughts and come back to your focus, then it shouldn't stop after you're done meditating. That you need to put that into action in the real world. So as we're talking to each other right now, it's about being aware of where our feet are on the floor, which hand is holding my cup of coffee, and what my other hand is doing, what my body language is expressing, what my facial expression is expressing. Where is my breathing? I can be aware of all that and talk at the same time. And in fact, when I'm aware of all that, it expands my awareness, my consciousness, and usually the conversation becomes more interesting.
I can imagine that. Yeah, I think, again, people think these things take a lot of time. But again, some of the practices I've used, and we've heard them called micro techniques, but even the taking 3 deep breaths, which probably takes less than a minute, all of a sudden you can get an amazing amount of recovery there. It doesn't have to be hours spent alone in a room.
It goes back, and it's funny, it goes back to acting, actually. When I was acting, my teacher would tell me when I would go on stage, don't be in your head. Being in your head means like you're thinking about all the things you should be doing. Should I move this way? Should I do this? Do I remember my line? And so on. The reality is you have to learn your lines so well that you won't need to try to remember them when you're on stage. And then you have to let go of everything. Just be present with the person that is in front of you and really talk to them. And when you do that, it's magical. Something really happens. For me, with mindfulness, emotional intelligence, it's the same thing. I don't want to be in my head. I want to be here. I want to be present.
I worked for a lot of years in labor relations, and so we had often difficult conversations that I had to have. And if I could be present and focused and really listening to the other person, it would turn out, even though I may have had some anxiety over it. And people would say, well, how do you stay that calm? I said, I'm trying to listen and I'm trying to remain curious. And that helps from me getting defensive and reacting to some of those things. All of that is learned over time, I think.
Yeah. When you listen to the way you describe, you don't fall prey to your emotions. You can see them coming and going, but you keep your focus on what's really going on. You also realize that other people in the conversation may fall prey to their emotions and go in a different place where they start blaming each other or not seeing what's going on, not listening, and so on. So we got the antidote for that, being present. To me, at the end, it's all about awareness, being more aware of yourself, more aware of others, more aware of everything that's going on around you. If you can just build your awareness, everything starts falling into place.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's, again, I think sometimes in the world we get so task-focused that we, again, have, I'll say, tunnel vision and aren't really seeing what's out in front of us in some ways.
So true. I have a friend who tells me that we are human beings, not human doings.
Yep, I agree, because I've recently been reading some books where it says we can have an endless set of to-do lists, and at our funeral, will anybody care?
So true, yeah. And interesting, is it, I don't want to mispronounce the name, Bronnie Ware, who wrote a book about the people who are about to die.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells about what they're talking about, like the things that they regret. And most of the time what they regret is having done everything that was expected of them and not done the things that they really wanted to do. And you don't want to get to your last day and just realize, oops, I forgot to live my life.
What are some of the things that you help people start with that as they take their first baby steps in terms of mindfulness or emotional intelligence? What are some of the opening things you ask people to do?
So if I'm in front of a group, it's about opening their mind. And we can do that with mindfulness, a workshop, a lunch and learn. It's about learning something new and maybe experiencing a couple of things, which I think is very important. When I'm working directly one-on-one, for me, it's really about listening to the other person, go beyond the story, see what's behind the topic that they gave me the story, and dig a little more with them to really find out what's really going on and talk about something real, and then we can do some work. And I use all the tools in the arsenal, mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and so on. But I would say that the main tool is to listen and to be with the person without any judgment. So you need to create really a big space inside where you can take what's going on and not judge it. And also not feel like it's out of your game. Some people may be doing things like you never thought about, you've never done in your life, or they may live a life that's a lot larger than yours. And that shouldn't be frightening to you as a coach. You want to be there and allow that this is happening for them and I'm going to be there with them. And so it's really about being honest. Another definition of human beings I've seen in one of those self-help books is a lying animal. We keep lying to ourselves and to other people. In fact, we don't even really lie to other people because we lie to ourselves first, so we believe in it. So when we say things to other people, it's not really a lie because we believe in it. But inside, we're lying to ourselves about many things. And that's how we end up at the end of our life, having done all the things that were expected of us and not doing the things that we really wanted to do because we've been lying to ourselves. And coaching is about going beyond all that and finding a place where we can be honest. And that sparks some interesting discoveries. And once we have the discovery, I trust that my client always has the resources that they need to go beyond whatever problem they have. I'm not giving advice. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just there with them and exploring. But I will scratch the surface and dig a little more and peel the onion layer after layer until we get to the place where it really matters. That's really how I see my job as a coach.
Yeah, I would agree. In my experience in coaching and helping people, that giving them space to speak, listening in a sense, but really giving them a safe space to speak, especially for leaders or executives, is they can really talk through a lot of things themselves, and they don't necessarily need my input to do that other than providing that space for them. And similar to what you do, I've often said, they'll have to connect the dots, but I may point out a few new dots for them to consider as we go through things.
Yeah, it's helping connecting the dots very often.
Yeah, and in some cases, the people who felt the best about the coaching I gave them is when I said very little, to be honest. They actually just had that opportunity to speak out loud about whatever issues were with them and speak long enough that, as you said, we peeled back the onion and got to what was underneath and not just the surface activities, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, and sometimes there's a very low-hanging fruit, like you realize that there is a lack of awareness or a lack of knowledge of something very simple, so you can suggest them something to read that will help them out. And so that happens too, of course. But the main thing is to be listening, not to be judging, to be with them and discover, explore, and find what's under the ice, what's out there, what's lurking out there.
Yeah, I think it's both the name of a book and a question that one of my teachers once said, that he always used the question, tell me more. When they stopped speaking, before he said anything more, just tell me more about that. And it was interesting what they came up with.
Yeah, it's the 3 questions of coaching, right? What's on your mind? What else? What else?
So as you think about some specifics about your work and the role you're working your way into now, any thoughts about other people who are facing that same feeling that you had when you were in your job and it was just draining you? What were some of the first steps you'd recommend to people to take when that happens?
Well, the first thing is, wherever you are, whatever your decision is, whatever you want to do, get out of chronic stress. Don't let yourself fall apart. I've seen horrible things at work. People who went long leave of absence and never, people dying like 6 months after retirement. And that was happening because I think they went too far. They pulled too much on their own body. Not getting enough sleep is the most common one. And then after that is working those insane hours and worrying all the time. And then, as I said before, when you get into chronic stress, you start doing all the things that are bad for you. Maybe drinking a little bit too much and not doing the things that are good for you, like exercising. So it's like a snowball and it gets worse and worse. So wherever you are, if you feel like you may be in that space, get out of it. And then after that, once you get some clarity, if you still want to quit your job, once you're healthy at your job, then hire a coach. Hire someone who's going to really listen to you and help you figure it out. And some people are lucky enough that they have a good listener amongst their friend or family that can play that role, but for most people, that's not the case. And you know the story. When the people from our family or friends, they listen to us, but they're really thinking about their own story. And they bring up their own story. They don't ask questions to go a little bit further. So a coach will do that. They will help you going further. And ask people who are doing the things that you want to do. Ask them what it's like. If possible, go with them. I don't know if it's possible to go to a training session, maybe with someone who is a coach, or getting coaching from them, but something so that you realize what's going on. So whatever you think you're going to do after your current job, your new career, get together with someone who is doing it and get a taste of it.
Bring an interesting thought up to me that often, whether it be friends, family, or coworkers, they may not like where we are, but they are comfortable with it. So when we start proposing to them that we're going to change where we are, they can be resistant, even though they mean well for us. Sometimes they're saying, you're different than you were before, and could you go back? Whereas a coach will help you keep moving ahead.
Totally. We're all adverse to change. And you're absolutely right. The people around us, they don't want us to change.
Yeah. Whether good or bad, they're comfortable with us.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about is the things that we think in our mind that we are capable to do. And to be honest with ourselves, when I started to think about what I wanted to do, I always thought I would get to it with big accomplishments, build my website in a couple of weekends and write a book and do this and do that. But I saw myself like doing those things in one straight line, getting very focused and getting it done. That's all imagination. It doesn't exist. That's not the real world. In the real world, what happens is you do what you can every day. And just a tiny bit every day that makes you go a step further, a little step further. So it's one little step at a time. And if you find yourself, like I was finding myself thinking, I would do this, I would do that, I'm going to take 2 months, out of the 6 months that I have and write a book, it's not going to happen. That's just you thinking, imagining things about you that are not true. And that's what I discovered about myself is I had a lot of that, thinking I would be able to do certain things that at the end I never got to do. So that was not very helpful. That was deflating. What was really helpful was to do the little things that I could achieve one day at a time. I can do this. I can do a post on LinkedIn. Okay, great. That's what I accomplished. But trying to do something really big from the get-go, now, if you're serious about writing a book, do 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day and see where you are like in 2 months from now.
Yeah, those consistent small steps, one, give you some sense of accomplishment and actually create accomplishment, but they also create momentum, I think, for you. It keeps you going.
Yeah, it's creating the momentum, making it real. As long as you have it in your head and you think, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, it's not real. It's just in your head.
Yeah, I have a good friend that says you require both meditation and movement. He says you can't do it without both of them. Tony, any final thoughts? Thank you for a rich conversation today. I really appreciate it. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience or things that you're working on now that we could certainly put in the show notes of things that you'd recommend people connect with you on?
Yeah, of course, people can connect with me for anything that has to do with mindfulness, emotional intelligence. But really, it's about, like I was saying, it's about awareness. If you want more awareness about who you are, what your purpose is, what you want to accomplish, and so on, being more aware of other people as well. And not just other people, but the universe around you, what's going on around you. Often we want to take a path, but that path is not available. That window is not open. But there are other doors, other windows that may be open. And so awareness helps you with that. We're not the center of the universe. We cannot do exactly what we want when we want. There is a big universe out there, and it's running the show. And for us, it's more about realizing the opportunities that are available to us and being ready when the opportunity shows itself.
Sure. Again, thank you, Tony. I appreciate it. And we'll, again, provide your contact information in the show notes. So with that, have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. Have a great day. It was a real pleasure to talk with you today.
Thank you. Again, many thanks to Tony for sharing his insights and wisdom. As a review, some of the questions we discussed included his journey from an expert in Fintech to the area of being a coach, how he developed his practice of mindfulness, how he now helps leaders take mindfulness into their everyday actions, and then some steps to consider in creating your own Encore career. And in the show notes, you're going to have contact information for Tony that you can refer to his website and his email. And finally, if you're considering or starting an Encore career, please take the self-assessment quiz to help you create some quick clarity around your possible choices. Again, thanks for listening and see you next time.